We are on the cusp of a major social change. Do you feel it? Even if you don't, make no mistake, change is coming, and it is going to be unforgettable. I'm your host, Dr. Sarah Hart, and here on Prime Spark, where we work with and on behalf of women over 55, I want to help you find that spark that will ignite your way forward, reflect your gifts to the world, and illuminate your path through this next stage of life. Through these podcast conversations, I hope to inspire you to see how you can make a significant contribution to some of the gnarly problems that are facing us right now. Join me, and together let's discover our Prime Spark. Hi, and welcome to Prime Spark. I'm Sarah Hart, and I'm so happy you're here with us. Prime Spark is designed for women over 50 or close, with a goal to help us all live our happiest, most fulfilling, and productive lives, now and in the future. The mission of Prime Spark is to change the way our society sees and treats older women. That's a big mission, which only means we all need to be involved and we need to get going now. And today I have the pleasure of talking with Sky Bergman, a woman whose work I greatly admire. Sky Bergman, Professor Emeritus of Photography and Video at Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, is in her third act after a 30-year teaching career. Her artwork is in prestigious museum collections, and her commercial work has appeared in renowned magazines like the Smithsonian. Sky's passion is creating films and projects that inspire intergenerational connections, emphasizing the power of shared stories. Following her successful PBS documentary, Lives Well Lived, her book, Lives Well Lived Generations, distills wisdom from the film, celebrating life's essence across generations. Welcome, Sky. I'm so happy you're here.
It's great to be here. Thank you so much for having me again.
Oh, you're welcome. I love it. So let's just get started, Sky. Do you experience getting older? And if you do, what is that experience?
And if, oh my goodness, yes.
If you don't, why do you think it is that you don't?
I definitely experience getting older. And I think, every day I look in the mirror and I can see a few more lines and I can feel my body isn't exactly what it was, a few years ago. But I have been very lucky that my experience has been, for the most part, positive. I think because I had really good role models, because I worked on this film and now the book. And I think that made a really pretty big difference in terms of how I viewed aging and getting older. And let's face it, the one thing we all have in common is that we age each and every day. So it is something that we should learn to embrace rather than fearing. And I feel fortunate that I've had some really amazing role models to help me along this journey.
Oh, that's so good, Sky. I think the problem for many of us is that we don't have those role models. And so the role models we have are people of a different generation who lived lives, everybody, as your film shows, but a lot of us have role models of people who live lives very different than we are living as we get older. And so it's wonderful to have role models.
Well, and I think, we talked when my film came out, and I think I started this journey really back when I started working on the film, and I was looking at approaching 50 and not finding positive role models of aging out there in the media. And here I had in my own family this amazing woman, my grandmother, who was turning 100 and still active and involved and engaged and working out at the gym, and something that she didn't start until she was 80. So, she was this great role model of it's never too late to start something new. And I thought, I want to find other people out there like her that I can really showcase, because that is not happening right now. And I'm glad to say that I do see more older adults, more intergenerational connections that are showing up in media now, whether it's in TV series or in commercials or things like that. There is more of that. But I'm 58, so this was about 10 or 12 years ago when I really started working on this project in full force. And that was definitely not the case back then. And the only things that you saw about aging was everything that you could do to avoid aging, like all the creams you could use and all the money that you could be you spend to be, in quotes, youthful. And I want to own my age. I don't need to be youthful. I'm 58. I want to be 58 and be proud of the age that I'm at and all the things that I've accomplished and where I am on my journey. So I'm grateful to have been able to spend the time to interview all these incredible people, to highlight people that were really role models for me in terms of what I wanted the rest of my life to look like.
Sky, just in case someone doesn't know, would you describe your original Lives Well Lived film?
Oh, sure. So the Lives Will Live film, which is still airing on PBS, amazing, is a film that I created after I mentioned that I had this epiphany with my grandmother. And I set on a quest to interview 40 people that were 75 and older with a collective life experience of 3,000 years who were really positive examples of aging. And like I said, 4 years of filming, another year of editing. And then I was lucky enough to have this film come out in theaters. As I mentioned, it's on PBS and Amazon and iTunes. And it is amazing because it really has proven to be an evergreen film, because when people watch the film, the stories are stories of wisdom, of resilience, of overcoming adversity. And it really resonates with people. And I think everyone, when they watch that film, one of the questions I ask if I have an in-person screening is, how many of you are thinking of someone that would have been perfect for the film? And I would say almost all the hands go up in the room. And so it's just it connects you with somebody in your own life. Maybe it even connects you with yourself and the stories that you want to share and tell. And it really has resonated with audiences worldwide. I feel so fortunate that my grandmother inspired such a wonderful project.
Were you surprised by the overwhelming reaction the film got?
Absolutely. I had no idea. I think I tell my students that the more personal a project, the more universal it becomes. And this was such a personal journey for me. It really was about kind of finding myself at 50 and also having the love of my grandmother. Really, it was so personal in that way. And to see it blossom into something that not just the film, but all the intergenerational projects that have come forth afterwards and the book and so many things. I mean, it completely changed the trajectory of my life and what I'm doing now. But I also get emails almost on a daily basis of how much the film has touched different people in so many different ways. And I had no idea when I started this that it would have the reach and the resonance with so many people.
I think it's very heartwarming that it has had that kind of resonance, because I agree with what you said before about you have started working on this 8 years ago. I have been doing Prime Spark for about 4 years. So even in those 4 years, I have seen a difference in the number of people who are focusing on older people in a positive way. That did not happen before. And we still have a long way to go, but there definitely is a difference. And I think work like you're doing is really moving that trajectory. And I so appreciate that.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And I think one of the things that I realized after I, had the film out there in the world was I grew up in a household that had four generations. Most people don't have that. My great grandmother lived to be into her 90s, and I was almost 20 when she passed away. So, and I remember sitting on a little ottoman by her chair, learning how to knit and crochet with her. And she only spoke Italian, and I would speak English with her. But, I had this wonderful wisdom of not only my grandmother, but my great grandmother, my grandfather. I mean, I grew up and their friends. So I grew up really being around people of different ages. That was not an anomaly for me. That was the norm. Teaching at a university, I realized that many of my students do not have that connection to an older adult. And so I've been really pleased that I was able to team up with somebody at the university here at Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, California, Professor Sarah Bartlett, who teaches a class called The Psychology of Aging. And really interesting way of how we teamed up was that when the Lives Well Lived film was in the theaters, one of her students went to see the film and came back to her class and said, "You have to see this amazing film. It's everything that you're talking about in your class." And she went to see the film and realized that we actually taught at the same university. And so she reached out to me. By the end of the week, we were having lunch together and figuring out how we could work together to make something incredible happen. And so we've been doing these intergenerational projects where we bring together students and older adults and we show the film to them, because I think that seeing the Lives Well Lived film, it kind of sets a stage for wanting to have a conversation between generations. And then we give the students and the older adults the questions that I used when I interviewed everyone for the film as a starting point, because I think the hardest thing to bring generations together sometimes in a conversation is, what questions do you ask each other? And so I think having a list of questions was really, it set the framework. And that I think was a really good starting point for them. And they have a bilateral conversation over the period of a quarter. And then at the end of the quarter, we have a really big wrap party where the students are tasked with talking about what they learned during this time with their older adult, and the older adults pipe in and talk about what they learned. And ageism is in both directions. We think of it more as directed towards older adults, but certainly there's ageist beliefs about younger people, and there is ageism in that direction as well. And of course, when you bring those two groups together, like any other ism or stereotype, when you know somebody from that other group, it's harder to have that ageist or that stereotypical belief about them. And so I feel like we are combating the stereotypes of ageism in both directions, one story and one connection at a time. And one of the common themes that comes out during the presentations at the end of the quarter is that the students and the older adults both realize that they have far more in common than their differences. And really, the only difference is their age. And it's such a heartwarming experience to be part of that.
Oh, that's so wonderful. So tell us about, is that largely what your book now is about, the Lives Well Lived Generations?
Yeah. So the Lives Well Lived Generations book, the first half of the book is really about how I made the film, because I'd never been a filmmaker before. So the lessons that I learned along the way. And then more importantly, I think the lessons that I learned from all these amazing people that I interviewed. So things like having a sense of purpose and community and a positive attitude, all those things that combine to really make someone, I think, live a life well lived and be happier when they're, older adults. And the second half of the book, because my passion now has become connecting generations because of the work that I've done, I talk a little bit about the project that I do with my colleague here, and there's other universities and high schools that have picked it up as well. And I'm very happy that PBS Learning Media has a part of their website that people can go to that has the Lives Well Lived intergenerational project. So educators grades 5 through 12 can bring it into their classrooms. So that's one part of the book. And then the very end of the book is I interviewed 40 people, because I like that number 40, who around the globe, who are doing amazing work connecting generations, whether it's through climate change or voting rights or an intergenerational symphony or co-generational housing, all really interesting ways that we can connect generations. So there's stories about how they got into that work, what their organization does, and what does they see as the benefits. And my hope is that it will inspire people to want to have more intergenerational connections, to get involved in different ways, and to really do what we can to bring generations together. Because I feel like we are living in such an age segregated world at the moment, and we're suffering as a result of that. And so whatever little things that I can do to help inspire people of different generations to connect, that's what my passion is at this point.
Oh, I love it, Sky. So I agree with you, but tell us why you think intergenerational work is so important. I mean, so what?
Well, I think there's a number of reasons. I think the biggest one is that, when we have ageist beliefs, we have people that we lump into the group of other, and we don't see them as people or our friends. And it's very different when we have a connection to somebody else. And I think that also we have older adults and young people who are the most isolated, loneliest group of people. And when we can bring them together, I mean, studies have shown what a benefit that is to both groups, to be able to have that friendship, to learn from each other, to have that sense of purpose of doing something together. That is just, there's nothing like that. And it really, just so much can happen when we bring generations together, so many positive things.
I think one of the things that has really harmed us is the naming of the generations.
Yes.
And I don't know how, I mean, we won't get rid of that because it's just too embedded at this point. But I think if we just didn't have that, so that people couldn't say, oh, millennials or boomers or whatever it is, and then lump this group of people together as if they're all the same and have these handful of qualities that we think they've all got that we don't like. So I think that's been really, really damaging.
I think so too. I think that those labels that we put on people really just make it easy for people to, like, when you check a box, you say, I'm this age group and this age group, but everybody is different within that wide swath of that age group. And I think to put labels on things and to describe people because they are a certain age group as a certain way, I think really does a disservice to everyone. And it does make each group feel like the other, and I think that that also doesn't help all that much when we do that. So the more that we can do to break down those barriers. I mean, look, I teach at a university. I teach in a situation where most of the students are 18 to maybe 24. So I am part of that age segregated society in some ways, although I continue to age as the students stay the same age. And that's kind of an interesting phenomenon to be part of, because I am around that same age group all the time. And so for me, I guess I always have this kind of intergenerational thing going because I'm always around people that are younger than me. And that just, it's a different kind of way of being and the different energy. I learn from them as much as they learn from me. What I can give them is a lot of experience because I've had more years to have that experience. But what they can bring to the table many times are fresh ideas and a new way of looking at things, because I have done some things the same way for so long that I forget to think outside the box at times. I mean, I do try, but it's just one of those things where bringing the generations together, you have such a wonderful combination of those things that in the end, you get a better end result, whether it's in the workplace or a nonprofit that you're working with or whatever it is. Having that varied opinion and that varied way of dealing with things and coming at different problems for solutions, I think is critically important.
Just as you were saying that, do you know anybody who is doing this work in corporations?
There are corporations that are doing that. There are many that are picking up this model of intergenerational work and really making a point to have a number of different generations. I have worked with Land O'Lakes, who actually has a reverse mentorship program, which is kind of an interesting idea. So there are some interesting things going on in corporations. I do think that, and I'm very happy to see that many organizations and corporations are starting to think about what does it mean to have ageist beliefs and how can we change that? And how can we have a more level playing field for everyone within that organization rather than kind of this pecking order and then also discarding people when they get to a certain age? We don't want to do that either. And so I think there is something about that institutional wisdom that is so important. And so learning what the strengths of everyone are rather than it being based on their age, but what is their strength that they bring to the table. And I think there are certainly more organizations that are working on doing that. And that is heartwarming to me to see that. We have a long way to go, but I think it's at least something is happening and the needle is moving a little bit.
Good. I am very happy about that because on both ends of the ageism spectrum, but the thing, because of what the work I do, the thing that is most distressing to me is when women in their 40s are experiencing ageism in the workforce already. And I have read, and I don't think this is widespread, but I have read that in some of the places where older and younger people work together, they're fine. It's a lot of it has to do with the press that the whole thing has gotten. The difficulty of having an intergenerational workforce when in fact, if you talk to some of the people involved in it, they're fine.
Well, yeah, and I think it's just like anything else. Sometimes when the media picks it up, they can sensationalize a problem and make it worse rather than better. And I think that one of the things that's happening now is that we are seeing more being written in the media about how to bring generations together. And the more that we see that, the better things will get. And the more that different corporations that are not doing a good job of that are called out on the carpet, the better it will be as well. Because we don't want to see women in particular are, like you mentioned, can really experience those ageism situations really starting in their 40s. And the more that we can do to avoid that, I think obviously the better, because it's really hard for me to imagine being aged out at 40. And that seems so young. And you're losing somebody that's had all these years of experience. So I think part of it is probably financial, because people that have been at a company longer are probably paid more than somebody that comes in. I'm just guessing. I am lucky that I never experienced it at the university, because there isn't, you don't have to retire at a particular age. And so I really didn't experience that. When I turned 40, I became department chair. So I actually was at the really beginning of my career, not at the end of my career. And so I feel very fortunate that I had a career in an educational institution that allowed me to really flourish. And I know that that's not the case for all women out there.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that, whether or not in your career in university, if you experienced ageism as you got older. And I don't know if in your field it would be more or less likely to experience ageism as a woman.
Well, I think that, again, being in the university situation, I didn't experience it in the same way that I know many people that I'm friends with did. I really had a very different experience because I was in the university system. And in fact, my having been at the university since I was in my 20s and having been there for many, few decades at that point, was actually a positive rather than a negative. And I think, again, I think I was really just lucky. I think that a university situation is a little bit different than a corporation. I have tenure. I'm retired at this point, but I had tenure, and I'm now a professor emeritus. I was lucky enough to call my own shots and know that I was never going to be fired because I had tenure. And that's a very different situation to be in than somebody that maybe feels a little more tenuous at their position. So I think that's why I didn't feel that same ageism that maybe some other women of my age did.
Well, and I think it's a testament to you and also to your organization, because I know women in university systems that are greatly influenced by ageism and sexism. And so it has a lot to do with where you are and who you are. I think how much you experience it. So good. I'm really glad you didn't.
Absolutely. And I had good colleagues, and I had, not that women are the best or whatever, but when I was department chair, it was all women in the dean's office. And I do think that made a difference. We're in the College of Liberal Arts, and it was actually a really good working environment, and one that I enjoyed going into every day. And now I'm at the point where I want to do something else, and I'm happy to be retired. I just teach part-time, and I don't have to do any committee work or faculty meetings, and that's a gift as well. It was a little hard to walk away from that job because I did know that and feel, women my age, a lot of them were being pushed out of the workforce, and here I was voluntarily retiring. But I like to think of it as not retiring, but finding my third act and doing something different, which is doing this filmmaking and this work that I'm really passionate about in terms of trying to do what I can to promote connecting generations.
Yeah, I don't think you're retired, Sky. I mean,
No, hardly. I like to say I'm retired from teaching, but I am not retired.
yeah, no, I mean, you were working full out so far. I see, not
Yeah.
teaching, not going to meetings and stuff, but with what you're doing. So I understand that the intergenerational work you're doing right now is hugely meaningful for you. Is there anything else that you're doing now that is really meaningful for you above and beyond the intergenerational work, or is that pretty much it?
Well, I'm working on two new films, which both have an intergenerational component. So that will always run through my work, whether it's a film or a book or whatever I'm doing, that's going to be a component. The first film is called Mochi Suki, and it is the Japanese tradition of making mochi to bring in the new year, and also about the Japanese American experiences told through this wonderful ceremony that has been done for centuries. And if you have never had mochi, mochi is rice that's pounded until it is a consistency of basically like bread dough. And then it's made into these round mochi balls. And the thing that I loved about it was that it's generations that come together to make food. And I think all of us can think about some traditional thing that we did with our families, with friends, that we came together around food. And of course, I grew up in my grandmother's kitchen. So anything that has to do with bringing generations together through food is just, it's high on my list. That's going to be on PBS in May of 2025. And the other film, which is I am a band geek. I played flute, clarinet, and bassoon when I was in high school. I got connected to this band in Santa Barbara, California called the Primetime Band. And they are a group of about 75 people. They're mostly 50 through all the way up to in their 90s, who played instruments when they're in high school and maybe even college, and then put their instruments away while they were doing their, in quotes, day job, and have come back to music. And now they rehearse every Tuesday, and then they perform throughout Santa Barbara County. And I love that, coming back to music later in life, and that passion and the community that's formed, and all the wonderful things that go along with playing an instrument, and keeping us on our toes, having to read music, using our brains in very interesting and creative ways. And there's people that have Parkinson's that play there. There's just, I mean, no physical limitation seems to keep them away from playing their instruments. It's amazing. And a number of those people are also part of a group called the Music Van, which is quite literally a van full of instruments that they take into third grade classrooms in Santa Barbara County to introduce instruments to 8-year-olds, many of whom have never even touched an instrument in their lives. So again, I love that intergenerational cycle of people coming back to instruments later in life, and then paying it forward and introducing young people to instruments in third grade. It is so, to be in the classroom when they're doing that, I can't even tell you, it just was so much fun to be around that energy of those young 8-year-olds picking up an instrument for the first time and blowing into a tuba or a trombone or a trumpet, or picking up a violin, and the light in their eyes as they make a sound from it. I'm getting chills thinking about it. It's just such a wonderful, wonderful project.
Oh, I love that. So is that going to be a film?
That will also be a film. I'm hoping that will also air on PBS, but that one is not quite as far along as the Mochizuki one, but it's coming along.
Oh, that will be wonderful to see.
Yeah.
So I had like 3 or 4 questions as you were going along. The one I just have to ask first is the mochiziki good,
Well, I mean,
or is it an acquired taste?
It's an acquired taste. I love being at the Mochisuki Festival because there's rice flour flying around, and it's just the energy of that is so wonderful, and the stories that are going back and forth. But it's definitely an acquired taste. It's very chewy, and it is hard to know exactly when to swallow it. So I think it's one of those things that, we all have something from our childhood that was that thing that we did when we were a kid, that we want to continue on that tradition. And I think for many Japanese Americans, that the mochi really defines bringing in the new year. Like, you have to have mochi, otherwise it's not the new year. But it is definitely an acquired taste. And my 2 nephews, I have 2 Japanese American nephews, and they laugh at me because I don't really know how to eat it, because the consistency is a little different than what I'm used to. But they love it.
I love it. I love it. So what instrument do you play?
Well, now I still play flute and I play guitar. In fact, when I went to the Primetime Band to meet them for the first time, one of the things as a filmmaker that I like to do is I like to meet people first. I don't like to bring my camera gear. I like to establish a relationship. And when I went down to meet the Primetime Band for the first time, I didn't bring any camera gear. I brought my flute, and I sat in and I played with them. And that was such a wonderful experience. And now I'm like part of the band. I'm an honorary band member. And I love that. So I still somewhat play flute, but more guitar than anything.
Right. And so do you go down there every Tuesday night to play with them?
I don't go down every Tuesday night. I was just down there last Tuesday night, and they're performing on Thursday, and I'm going to go down on Thursday to film them performing.
Oh, I love it. I just love it. So, Sky, if somebody is listening and they get really interested in this idea of intergenerational, how could they get started? Let's say they're not connected with any school. I mean, let's say that they maybe had children, but the children are way grown up at this point, and the school, nobody would really remember them from their children. They're just not connected to a school. How could they get started with this?
Well, I will say two things. One is on our website for the film, which is lives-well-live.com. There's a section called Take Action, and you can go to that part of the page and you can see some ideas of things that you can do. I think one of the best things that you can do if you don't know where to start is find an organization that you can be part of, that has young people in it that you can volunteer for. Find a nonprofit that you want to work with. The other thing on a very simple level is I actually do a women's dinner every month, and I have people from 20 to 90 that come. So everybody likes to have food. You do a potluck and just invite people around your table that are of a different generation. And it doesn't have to be something monumental. You can start very small. But I think looking at organizations that are in your area is a good way to start. And then just, meet, even just take a moment to try and talk to somebody from a different generation. Just have a conversation with somebody. And that can happen in a grocery store. It doesn't have to be something super formal. It's amazing how you can form friendships and how you can break down those barriers if you're open to it.
It's good suggestion to find organizations. After you and I talked the first time and I got really interested in the intergenerational, I talked to somebody about the possibility of forming that intergeneration, a co-mentoring circle is what I wanted to have. And I ran into problems with all sorts of restrictions about working with kids from schools. It was just not possible to do. And so that's not the route. That's not the first route to go unless you already have a connection with a school, or at least that was my experience.
Yeah, and I think, we have memorandums of understanding that we have to work with through the university and through the facilities and the places that we go to that we are doing our joint projects. So it definitely takes a little bit of doing to make that happen. But there are many organizations that are already in place that you can become part of. And so looking at what those organizations are and how can you, especially if you're an older adult wanting to do something like this, volunteering your time many, many times is a way to have access where you can be around young people. And, if it's something that you love doing and you love giving back, that's a really wonderful win-win situation to have that happen.
What would be one example of an organization that might be in a community that somebody could get involved with?
Well, I mean, there's a number of different organizations that I can think of, like, Big Little Brothers, I'm not saying it right, but the Big Brothers organization. You can probably go to your local YMCA or YWCA and see what kind of programs they have there. There's so many different organizations that I think would be very happy to have people volunteering and helping out. And I think it's just a matter of finding what it is how you want to, as an individual, want to give back so that you're passionate about what you're doing because you want to be enjoying what you're doing as well. And then figuring out who to connect with and who to talk to. I think it just would take a little bit of research, but not much. Find out what organizations might be in your city and what ways you can give back and be part of an intergenerational community.
And as you say that, I realized that one of the things that might be important for people to do is figure out what age group am I most interested in. I mean,
Absolutely.
the difference between third graders and 11th graders. I mean,
absolutely, or toddlers, or there's one of the organizations that I interviewed. They worked with, they had like a daycare system that was for older adults and toddlers, and so it's kind of, I mean, it's wonderful because it's bringing those two groups together, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful organization. But yes, I think it's very important to think about what age group it is that you're kind of thinking that you might enjoy spending time with. And for some people, it might be really young kids. For some people, it might be teenagers. For some people, it might be college age students. It really just depends. And intergenerational, I'm 50. I have friends in my 90s. That's still intergenerational. It doesn't have to be that it's somebody younger than you. It could potentially be somebody that's older than you. I think that's really important to realize as well. And like here in our town, we have something called Slow Villages, and it's primarily made up of people in their 50s who volunteer to help people in their like 70s, 80s, and 90s that need rides, that need help with things. That's an intergenerational project right there. So, that definition is pretty broad.
That when you talk about that, I think there are a couple of places I have heard of that the retirement community is on or near a college campus. And I think that is a wonderful model. And I hope that spreads, because I think that that's a win-win.
Absolutely.
So Sky, thank you so much. I'm sure people would like to find out more about your work and to know how to get in touch with you, know where to get the information. So what would you suggest?
Well, the best way to find me is actually to go to my main website, which is skybergmanproductions.com. And that's SKYBERGMAN productions.com. And everything that I'm working on is all on that page. And then you can go off in your own direction as to whichever one you're interested in. You can go to that website from there.
Okay. Well, thank you, Sky. This has been wonderful. I love your work. Thank you so much for doing it. We need it desperately right now in this world. So
thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
So that's our time for today. Please join us again. You can find our Prime Spark podcast on every popular outlet. Find out more about Prime Spark at primesparkwomen.com. Thank you so much to my guest, Sky Bergman. And don't forget, you can find her at skybergmanproductions.com. Thank you for being with us. Take care, spread tolerance and love. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode and would like to stay updated, you can head over to my website, primesparkwomen.com, and get my free Spark Guide, 7 questions to ignite your spark, to help you discover your own spark. See you in the next episode.